Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Welcome back to Home's Room. Another episode. Got an interview for you, and Caitlin and I are here together for an interview again, which is really fun. We don't usually get to do that. So hello, Caitlin.
Hi, Matt. Hello, our listeners. We love you. We adore you. I am so excited for this topic specifically and what you have told me about this interview in general. So let's just jump right into it, Matt.
All right. With a combined 40 years of professional experience in love, intimacy, and sexuality, Leah Piper and Dr. Willow Brown co-host the Sex Reimagined podcast with interviews and lots of information to help guide you on your journey to emotional intimacy and sexual mastery. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Matt and Caitlin. It's so fun to be here with you both.
So if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourselves, respectively, that'd be great. And I'm going to point to my bottom left screen, which is Willow.
All right. So bottom left going first. That's Dr. Willow Brown. Hey, everyone. I am a Taoist sexology teacher. What the heck is Taoist sexology? It is a way of looking at your sexuality as a means to vitality and health. You can actually heal your body with sexual energy, especially highly aroused sexual energy. So all kinds of practices to move the chi through your body. I am a Chinese medicine doctor, functional medicine expert, and I love playing in this field with the one and only Leah Piper.
Thanks, Willow. I am an advanced certified Tantra educator. I also hold multiple certifications in various somatic therapies and positive psychology. So I take that same sexual arousal energy that Dr. Willow was just talking about and channel that to help heal the nervous system from trauma, from heartache, from the emotional woes, our story of woe that happens as we walk through this life as a human being, and then take that energy and then further amplify it so that it adds to our sexual awakening so that we can have profound mystical experiences when it comes to pleasure and sex.
Well, that sounds amazing. It's one of those things where you guys
so
are
amazing. Caitlin's kids are just wailing about it in the background.
Here at Home's Room, we keep it real.
Yes.
We keep it very real.
We want some of that.
Yeah.
There have been several episodes in the past where my children have been screaming in the background, and tonight is no absence of that.
Yeah.
So sorry, Matt.
We practice being truly honestly real, so it's just part of it. And kids are usually made in a specific way, so if anybody's listening to this episode, all about one of those ways. So it's good. You two sound like a 1-2 punch though.
We're all about that.
Yeah, that's what we try and do. All right, so if you can take me to 2022 episode 1, can you give us the genesis of Sex Reimagined? Where did this idea start, and how did it take shape?
Leah, take it away, girl.
Well, one of the things that, Willow and I had been working together in a mastermind. We were living in the same town at the time. She'd been to a couple of our weekend seminars and then to our certification process in Tantra, and her and I hit it off right away. And understanding her depth of experience of acupuncture and Chinese medicine and the Tao, that really complemented the work that I was doing in Tantra. We both were total geeks on energy and really wanting to join forces to explore how other people can reach deeper levels of intimacy. And so the podcast was kind of born from that. We had taught a couple online courses together at that point, and we knew we had something to share. And so we started to take a look at all the amazing experts and sexperts that we have come across over decades of being in this industry. And it just made sense that we put together a podcast that got to highlight various experts, whether that was in sacred sexuality, or authors, or researchers, or therapists, and
or BDSM.
Yeah, all areas of sexuality we wanted to give a platform to, not only because we know how important this work is, but because we had our own curiosities. We wanted to push our own edges. And it's been really fun these past 2 years, these past 2 seasons, to sort of explore how we have grown even outside of our expertise as it relates to some of these interviews. And we got to be in greater connection with colleagues that were near and dear to us, and then new people that we have never had a chance to sit down with. So it's been a total adventure. And that first episode was with Sherry Winston, who's a legend in our circles. She wrote the book, The Female Anatomy of Arousal, and being able to see like women's sexuality and understanding that we've got as much erectile tissue inch for inch and ounce for ounce as men was really life-changing, I think, for both Willow and I when we first read her book and was introduced to her work. So it's been great having her on the show a couple of times.
We really utilize this podcast to help people reimagine what is possible in sexuality. It's not all about the genitals. There is a lot more to play with, explore, expand into, and all of our speakers, and then we do one on just her and I chatting conversations, and there's never a dull moment. And we get people writing in all the time like, oh my God, now I get it. Like, now I understand. Now, oh my God, and I had this amazing sexual experience. That's always fun and juicy to get those comments when they come in.
So you two had this idea for a podcast, and it came to fruition when you're sitting down about to hit the record button for the very first time. As two fellow podcasters who happened to meet over the internet together, we were horrifically nervous. I think at least I was the first time that we recorded an episode together. How nervous were the two of you together whenever you decided not only is this going to be an adventure that we embark on together, but here we are hitting record on our very first episode? What was that like?
I don't think we were very nervous. Were we, Leah? No. We've been in front of audiences and stages and teaching people and for a long, long time. So we're kind of coming in hot to this experience, and we're more just like excited about it and passionate about it. We actually launched our podcast with a summit. So we did a bunch of pre-recorded interviews to launch that first season, which was really smart. And we've done 2 summits at this point. And those are a lot of work and a lot of fun. And they're just a great way to get your podcast rolling, because you're kind of starting out ahead of the game when you do it that way.
Yeah, I have to say that for me, it was a lot more nerve-wracking to be live in front of an audience than to pre-record. And our first recordings, I think we did 6 episodes just with Willow and I, and then we broadcasted them. And that was always easier. Like obviously her and I have a lot of comfort with each other. So we're just rapping, talking business like we would normally. And that was really easy. When we started doing the interviews with other people, I could tell like I would talk really fast. There's a part of like this amping up that kind of goes on in your nervous system where you do have that like extra charge. And I have to remind myself to like,
I can't breathe.
Wow. Talk slower, so there's still those like jitters sometimes, especially when you're already like a fangirl of someone. Then that always like ups the nervousness.
If you've got a big name or something, I was just putting in our application to get Mama Gina on the line. So, I was just thinking, wow, that'll be really cool to sit with Regina, and drop in with somebody who in our industry is a big name.
Yeah, I think that, for me, you two both fall into that category. I am, we've plugged the Shameless Sex podcast quite a few times. So when I discovered you and started listening to your episodes and you had them on relatively early, and then, I could tell that, both of you have a friendship, and it seemed like the conversation with them was just so like effortless. It was like, man, that's it's those moments where you can tell that more than podcasters, more than experts in your field, you're just like genuine people. And that was one of the things that like drew me to being able to listen to your episodes so much more, you know. And I wondered, you know, from the beginning till now, and like you said, you launched a summit first, what growth would you say you've seen in each other from that moment to now?
That's a really good question. Yeah. Gosh, you want to start, honey?
Well, God, it is a really interesting question. I can say, like, for my journey, what the podcast has really done for growth inside myself is my curiosity into the kink space and my voracious reading of erotica. We've had a number of erotica authors on the show, and they really inspired me to stretch my imagination. And as a result, I feel like I've gone through like this new version, this new chapter of sexual awakening. You know, when I first started kind of taking a look at sexual healing and awakening in my mid-20s and had so many like huge life shifts as a result, you come into your 40s,
Amen,
and you think,
sister.
right? And you kind of go, after a while, you're like, well, I've been in this industry for a couple decades now. Like, probably know a lot of it. There's always more to learn, and I had one of those, oh my God, hallelujah, I'm in another awakening chapter where
There's
everything
a whole
is
another castle.
Yes, it's just like blasting open. And so that's been like, I think the newest change in me that's been evolving. And I would say, like with Willow, I've seen her go through a couple of relationships in the iteration of this podcast. And so watching her like blossom and open and really receive deep love into her life, into her being, and then also watch her transition out of a relationship and sort of be with the heartache with such poise, with such dignity, with such consciousness, with such self-awareness into every stage of the unfolding of like love blossoming and then love shifting and it not going like always the full distance that we hope for. And so I have watched this evolution in her that takes so much courage and depth. And she's been so honest and real about it on the show. And that's not easy, you know?
What a compliment. Oh,
You're
my
gonna make
goodness.
me cry. Sometimes I cry on our podcast. If ever there was a crier on a podcast, it'll be me. Oh my God. Yeah, it's been such a journey. It's been really fun. Yes, for sure. I would say the kink piece for Leah has been the big thing. And she's always like, you have to read this erotic novel, Willow. And I'm like, I can't read eroticism. I'm fucking falling apart over here. My heart is being shattered. You know, it's like last thing on my agenda is eating pussy right now. Like, like I just gotta get myself back together over here. So, you know, my big shtick in all of my work is like, you have to be so tuned into your own essence, to your own inner beloved. That's the primary relationship. And when you have that, then whatever happens outside of you, you know that you can still come home to your own core, to your own center, to your own essence, because we have no control of the people who are outside of us. And things happen all the time. Things shift, things change. People get sick. People have accidents. People drop into their old protective patterns and have a lot of fear, and they can't follow through with what their heart's really telling them to do. So for me to commit to following through with what my heart's telling me to do is the ultimate journey.
Yeah.
There you go. See, it doesn't take much.
Exactly. Well, so I always tell a guest, like I don't necessarily have expected you to hear any of our episodes or anything just yet. But I try and put together interviews that I'm asking you questions that nobody else asks you, so that you're not going to hear the same message that everybody gets from every other interview.
That was a great question.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you both for taking that one, and I've also known for just like jumping in both feet and not, you know, easing into it. So I apologize for that one too. But
no, we like that.
We like both feet. We only got so much time.
Yeah.
Exactly. You talked about erotica and things like that, and that's one of the things
that opened up the conversation about likes and dislikes for me and my wife is we would drive to practice. We played roller derby together, so we had an hour drive there and back. So we'd put on a podcast of, you know, whatever, or we'd listen to something so that we can, you know, talk about it. And it becomes that, well, we're listening to it and we're both dead silent because nobody wants to comment. And then it becomes like, what did you think about that? And a text message, you know, the next day. And then it became more open to a conversation of like, oh, I like that. And we were able to talk about it, and things like that really matter. So what is your approach to teaching about sex and sexuality? Like using that as an example of, you know, how I was able to learn, oh, well, try listening to this from a podcast, or try opening the conversation. What's your approach to teaching about that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, one of the exactly what you did is really good. Opening the conversation, like, hey, I heard this little ditty about, you know, anal sex. You want to hear about it, you know? And you might have a partner who's like, hell no, don't come near me, you know? And so it's just, but if they're willing to listen, that's a step in the right direction. And there's no destination. I think that's one of the main things that we teach. That's 100%. Like pinnacle. There's no destination. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're not trying to achieve anything here. We're just being present. And through that presence, intimacy is made up of 3 pillars. We've got trust, vulnerability, and presence. That's what true intimacy is. And without that trust of yourself, that connection and relationship to your own essence, your own inner beloved, trusting that you can come home to that, you can't really trust the other person. So therefore, then you couldn't be vulnerable with the other person. So when you trust yourself at that deep, deep level, then you can be vulnerable with the other person. Then you've got this trust vulnerability loop going on between you and another. And presence just comes in very, very naturally. And that presence breeds curiosity. And then through that curiosity, it's just a game. Like we're just in the sandbox with each other. This is how we play as adults. You know, it's like, what happens when I stick my finger up your ass? You know, what happens when I hold your heart chakra and look into your left eye, the eye of the soul? You know, what happens when you know, I fuck you from behind for 25 minutes? Do you know, just figuring it out, playing with it. And when we're, you know, there's all different genders going on in the world today. And so we're playing with that as well sexually. Like what works for me as a vulva owner today may not work for me as this particular vulva owner tomorrow. So it's like, we really want to bring that presence and that curiosity into every single situation. And then everything becomes a tantric experience. A tantra is a Sanskrit word, and it means a tool for expansion. So it's basically a platform to expand who we know ourselves to be, to expand our confidence, and to be able to experience more than we thought was possible.
Matt, this is like divine timing that we have this interview scheduled, because I have so many questions. So many questions. But from your perspective to both of you, Leah and Dr. Brown, you guys have kind of reiterated and gone back to this concept of returning home to yourself and returning home to, you know, knowing and owning who you are and trusting yourself, and that being kind of the first step of being able to embrace a partner. I'm hearing you say this and I'm like, I don't know if I truly know myself.
Yeah.
What would you say to our listeners who are perhaps thinking the same thing? Like, what resources would you offer to people like me who are hearing you talk about, you know, I am married. I am a mother of 2 tiny humans. I think it's, you know, being caught in the monotony of marriage and parenthood is something that Matt and I certainly share together in responsibility and all those things. How would you guide a potential client, student, or one of our listeners to go on what sounds like a really complicated journey of figuring out who you are to be able to trust yourself?
It is a journey.
Just want to thank you for your vulnerability, first of all, Caitlin. Yeah.
Thanks. It's really physically uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can feel that, but you're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
That's vulnerability. Like that's a step right there. That is a perfect example. of doing it, of getting closer to your essence. I'm going to let Leah take it away.
I think it is a complex journey, and it's one that I think we're all meant to step into in this lifetime, coming into a body and being human and discovering, who am I? Why am I here? What's the point of all of this? How do I know I'm lovable? How do I know that I'm worthy? How do I experience things that my soul deeply, deeply desires, but it's so scary to admit it, because what if I don't get it? You know, so like we have all these like parts inside of ourselves that so wants to have a beautiful life. And we question whether or not we're worthy of it. And then we try to go forth in the world and try to introduce the world to us in the hopes that they like what they see, that they're attracted to what they see, and that we get sort of that affirmation back from the universe. And so it's just like, that's the journey I think we're all meant to go on. And so one of the things that I really love about what the Tao and Tantra provides is it gives us a chance to cultivate the things that we most want. So if I don't know myself, I don't know if I can trust myself, I might have a lot of proof that says, see, you can't trust yourself. You made a really bad choice when you dated so-and-so. You know, you really screwed up. You know, how are you going to attract somebody different than that? Because the last 3 people you attracted had the same problems as so-and-so. And so you start to kind of take a look at your track record and you go, I have proof that I can't trust myself, that I'll screw up again. And so you have to just sort of hold yourself gently. And I think you also have to come to a point of going, and I want that to be different. I do desire to show up like in my essence, like Willow says, because that's really what you are. All the stories are just stories that say you're not. The truth is you are love. And it's not about what you do that makes you love or worthy of love. It's just being a being that has breath. That's just number one. And so like finding a way to come into your core and trusting that that is true. And then you learn how to have high regard for yourself. Because if you want other people to have high regard for you and to respect you and to see you, that starts with you being able to respect and receive and see yourself. And so we have to kind of have someone oftentimes that can usher us through these obstacles when we're filled with self-doubt or our self-esteem is in the dumps. And that was my journey. I grew up with sexual abuse. I thought I was a hideous person. I looked in the mirror and I truly thought I was a dog. I was like, I am ugly, hideous, and unlovable. I look at myself now and I go, there is such incongruency with that thought form. How in the world did I ever truly believe that? But I did. And it just got to a point where it was so painful. It got so fucking painful that I had to do something about it. And that's usually where I think other people start to begin. They realize I'm so sick of this pain that I'm in that I'm willing to do anything to get out of it, even if that means learning how to love myself. And so what got me out of that hell was I realized I couldn't think myself into loving myself. I had to actually do something physical, emotional, spiritual. And that meant I had to touch myself and say nice things to myself and get to know my body. And every time something hateful would arise, I had to turn down the volume on that hateful voice, that critical voice, and I had to invent a new voice, a loving voice, you know, the fairy godmother, whatever it took, that was going to shower and change those thoughts in my mind so I could see myself differently. And it was a huge transformation that came to a point where I could no longer look in the mirror and believe the hatred that I once believed. Now there was just a voice that was love. It took
really
some time.
brave thing for you to do and embrace and put into practice. I know Matt and I have talked about on several past episodes that like settling into a sense of normalcy or being fearful of disrupting your pattern of normal, whatever the cost of that is arguably the weaker way out. That it takes true courage and bravery to be able to want something different for yourself, but also put into practice that. I don't know, Matt, this is very divine timing. Thank you, Matt, for letting me join in on this. This is like this is awesome.
This is why we want to have those conversations. And I think that segues like perfectly into the next thing I wanted to ask you about was I was listening to the Guilt in Relationships episode, and, you know, it felt like I was in the room for that conversation, because it just, like she said, it's a thing that we talk about often. And facing that guilt for yourself, facing that, like, man, I'm always going to mess up, or I'm never going to be able to be good enough, or whatever those things are. So the fact that you have those candid conversations the way that you do, being able to bring that here, what should people do on top of what you just said, taking that moment to embrace yourself and, love yourself. And even, it sounds silly, people, I know, but giving yourself a hug, or, wrapping your hands around your shoulder. Like, often I put my hands on either shoulder and remind myself, that I'm safe and I'm in a better position than I was a month ago, a year ago, whatever that thing was, because emotionally and mentally I've grown from that spot where I was last year or last month or last week. So, what things on top of that would you offer our listeners in feeling guilty in a relationship?
Well, I think one of the things that Willow and I are really great at in terms of how we work with individuals and groups and couples is about building cultivation practices. So what it comes down to is having something tangible that you can put into place, that it gives you the practice to cultivate the thing that you want. And that could be forgiveness, that could be self-love, that could be sexual energy, that could be health and vitality. It really is about taking a look at your life and going, what do I most want in order to have the best life? And then finding a practice that you return to, that you commit to, that you put effort and energy into in order to produce the change that you're looking for.
Yeah, energy flows where attention goes. And so if we're continuing to put our attention on those negative thought patterns, those limiting beliefs, those really addictions to emotions that our body has, because emotions come from chemicals, which are like drugs, and they're innate in our bodies, right? And so we have addiction to being unworthy. We have addiction to feeling like we're not good enough. We have addiction feeling like we're too much, or no one's ever going to love us, or all those things that take us down in this downward spiral. And we put a lot of attention on them. We have a very strong practice with those things, So what if we started to practice something different? What if we started to practice the opposite? What if we learned tools, practices, breath work, sounding work, actual things to do to move energy? A lot of these negative patterns, beliefs, blockages that we hold on to, they come from our childhood, from our original wounding and trauma, of course, which is passed on through our parents and our grandparents. It's a lineage thing, right? So we heal it for ourselves, and then we heal it for the lineage. Pretty soon we're healing it for the world. I mean, Leah and I have both had many cathartic healing moments where we're like, where the fuck did that come from? Like, that wasn't mine, that was the collectives, that's what we say. And so, so when we start to put these new perspectives and spins and ways, and we put more attention on it, then that's what grows in our life. And the subconscious is unconscious. It's subconscious. Like, that's the name of it. So that's what we're not conscious of it, So how do we bring those things that we're not conscious of to consciousness? How do we bring the shadow to the light? And I have searched the world over for healing modalities. I have done every single healing modality under the sun, and I have never found a more powerful, more to the root and to the point healing modality than sexual healing. And it's because all of these emotions get stored a lot in our lower chakras, in our body chakras. So like heart chakra down, the heart chakra is the one that kind of bridges the lower physical ones to the upper spiritual ones. So a lot of us have this kind of like turmoil in the heart and this like confusion in the heart, because it's like, I really want to break out of these lower vibrational feelings and emotions and transcend into that place of pure consciousness. But how do I do it? You have to get it out of the soma. You have to get it out of the cellular body. You got to get it out of your lingam, your pussy. You got to get it out of your womb. You got to get it out of your gonads. You got to get it out of those lower pelvic areas and gut and just the lower body. And then it moves up, it liberates, and it frees you to be more in connection with what I call the Tao. Some people call it the field, some people call it God, some people call it, whatever you want to call it, but it's non-duality. It's a place where all things are possible because you're letting go of the myopicness of the human beingness.
Yeah, and the story comes down to letting go of the story.
Yeah, I love that. I started my healing journey almost 4 years ago now. Right as COVID was like kicking off, I was an essential worker, so I never stopped working. So when our business was deemed essential, and I was a retail worker, but because our business was deemed essential, we still didn't close, but we only did curbside. So our building was closed except for going outside to hand people their stuff and then come back inside. So I had tons of time to listen to audiobooks, to listen to podcasts. And the things that started speaking to me most, and it almost made me feel strange at first, was podcasts about sex and sexual awakening and things that I wouldn't have connected to, being able to unlock feelings in your mind while addressing like true deep wounds. And everything you just said, like, it resonates with me, because I 1000% agree, where the thing that most people arguably keep locked away the most is their sexuality, because they're afraid, because they're shameful, whatever that thing is. So if you skip the small steps of like, what do I want for dinner, and being able to answer that question for yourself, or where do I want to go for fun, being able to make that decision for yourself. You skip those small steps and go straight to, what things do I actually enjoy for sex? What things am I allowing myself to actually pay attention to? In, what things am I aware that like I do like or I don't like, and actually leaning into those feelings.
Yeah.
That made so much difference in just like my everyday life, to be able to make the differences where I was like, man, I don't like this thing. And it's okay for me to say, hey, guess what? I don't like this thing. So I'm going to opt out. So no harm, no foul. I'm just going to not do that.
Yeah.
And that confidence goes so much further.
And then to like have the courage to like own what you're afraid people might find out about, the things that turn you on that we're afraid someone would judge. The things that we have a feeling might turn us on, but we've never investigated it because it just scares the shit out of us. I mean, there's all sorts of things having to do with our sexuality that, as a result of our religion, our culture, our family of origin, has either said is right or wrong. And I think most people wrestle with what that is. And even if what that is I don't even know what turns me on. I have no idea. I can't answer half these questions because I've never investigated them, because it was never okay to look at these things, because otherwise it would mean A, B, or C. Like, we get really afraid of the judgment from outside of what it means if we really start to identify who we are as a sexually expressed person. I mean, how many of us are not having these kinds of conversations in our own family? How many of us get embarrassed by having these conversations with our friends? How many of us have secret communities that we can talk to these things about because there's no one else who we feel safe enough? But so we'll go into these private rooms and have some sort of community that we can start to unpack some of this stuff with. It's pretty interesting how, of all the sectors of our life, we're the most embarrassed of sex. And what would the world be like if we weren't? If we were more free? If we could be more honest?
And that's why podcasts like yours and mine exist.
Yeah, totally. It gives people a chance to privately start to sort some of this out before they start taking some of those bigger cultural risks outside in their world with the people that they love. And even being sex experts. I mean, I'm crossing those boundaries for myself that are new all the time. I mean, me and my journey of this erotica in my own relationship with my marriage has been sort of an interesting thing. I keep on wanting to read the passages out loud to him, and he's like, I'm not interested. I'm like, is this too corny for you? But if you would just listen, then you'd get like an inside view into like what's happening over here. And so like, that's a whole new level of communication that we're bridging. Like, I have to hear his no.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
100%.
Now I have to do something different with that information.
Yeah.
Is it difficult for you to hear his no? What is your immediate response to that? And how do you move forward from like an initial moment of uncomfortability? Because I'm sitting here like posing all of these hypothetical situations, or even your example of reading erotica out loud to my husband. He for sure would be like, nope, la, 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 la. You know, so what do you do when you are ready to have these conversations and maybe your partner is not?
Well, like, as you can imagine, as I kind of felt you feel, there's like that initial like, like kind of like, but I was just like, I just took a risk. And like sharing something that's kind of important to me, that's got me sort of titillated. And like my hopes is that it would open you, not close you. But now the feedback I'm getting is that it's closing, it's not opening. And that's kind of like a, you know, to the heart or the gut or whatever. It's like, there's a feeling of disappointment, you know? And I could go into a story that says, he doesn't love me. He thinks that's gross. He's rejecting me. I could go into all of that, but I have enough practice now to go, don't make it about you. You know, breathe some space into this. This is not about you. This is his honest response to what's true for him in this moment right now. Can I hold space for that? And not make it about me, and just make space for him to have his own authentic reaction. So, you know, first feeling is, I wish you didn't feel that way. Second reaction is, I want to know more about that. Now it's like I'm choosing to be curious instead of going into judgment, because I could judge myself or I could judge him. So I've created a muscle that has told me and taught me that curiosity suffocates judgment. So I have a ding, ding, ding when I have a judgment response to switch to curiosity and go, well, isn't that interesting? I had a gut reaction. Isn't that interesting that he feels this way? Can you share more? What comes up for you? And then knowing when to like set it down and pick it up for another day. Like knowing when like the nervous system goes, okay, can't take in any more content. Can't take in any more reactions. I need to set this down and pick it up at another time when we both had a chance to like sort out what that was like for us. So,
which can take a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to know when to stop touching it.
Yes, it does.
It's very emotionally intelligent.
Yes. It does take some self-control, and I didn't always have this level of self-control I have now. That takes, see, this is where love is so important. Because I don't have to do this perfectly. And neither does my husband. We can be messy together. We've built enough emotional capital. And that's what's really important. I think people should really consider investing in when they take a look at their deepest friendships, their closest family members, and their sexual partners. What are we doing that creates enough emotional capital that we can take risks with each other in this relationship? That I can make a mistake, or I can become unglued, and I know I'm not going to be left. I'm not going to be rejected. And I'm with people who are going to try to understand where I'm coming from. The way forward with that is for me to be the person that I want other people to be for me. So that means for me not to overreact when someone has a reaction, for me not to make the story all about me, for me to give them space to be themselves, to be, to give them grace. When they blunder, when they fall apart, when they make a mistake, when they overshare, you know, all these things that I'm going to do. And so when we start to realize, wow, I really can trust you and you can really trust me. And it's in the recognition of I trust you and I trust me that thing about self-trust starts to grow. And you start to realize I can make a mistake and I trust we're going to be okay. And so I think that's something my husband and I have been very intentional in cultivating with each other. And so having conversations like this, that's how these things start to happen. And being someone who's generous with forgiveness.
Yeah. I know we're kind of strapped for time. So I got one more hard-hitting question, and I'm gonna have to beg you to come back on so we can have more of this conversation, because it's riveting for me. Hopefully everybody listening.
We would love to.
Yeah, you guys are fun. We would love to.
Please.
I love the dynamic you have together. If you had to pick one thing for the other to be successful at this year, what would it be?
What a great question. I love
Sweet
these
question.
You are so good at the questions. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I would love, this is going to be a great one, right? I would love for Leah to be really, really successful with her podcast and business.
I love it. I love it. Caitlin, that was
she
such
would
a
love
me
the
answer.
Same for me,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That was such a us question or an us answer to that question.
Perfect.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. My hope for Dr. Willow is that her podcast monetizes like a MF, and she gets sponsor after sponsor after sponsor. And that she embarks on a love adventure that sweeps her off her feet and teaches her so much that she gets to bring to all of us, that she really finds the love of her life. That's one of the things I really hope for her.
Yeah. And on a more personal level, my wish for Leah is that this kink and BDSM world just continue to flower her open in all of the deep roots that she already has in sacred sexuality, and that experience again comes forth and permeates into who she is and what she offers and delivers to the world.
I like that.
Love it. Hopefully within the next few weeks of this episode dropping, there'll be an interview with the dominatrix and her business partner. So you might have to tune into that one
Would love to.
and see what's going on.
Nice.
But you end your episodes with a special segment, and it's called The Dish.
The dish.
What we end our episode with is the this or that. So I got some questions for you if you're ready.
Let's do it. Hit it. This or that are fun.
Yeah.
I love these.
All right. Helping your partner unlock a new sexual understanding, or having a listener or course taker reaching out to you saying you've helped them?
Partner.
I like both. I take both.
He's really good at coming up with this or that. I will tell you.
I try. You have, the next one is, you have to do 2 interviews. Are you going to do the ones where the conversation flows, but you don't make your points? Or are you going to do the ones where the points are made, but the energy is low?
Oh,
flow, of course.
Definitely flow.
Yeah. See, and that's where a podcaster is going to always be like, yeah, flow. Because you know those other ones, and you know how troublesome they can be.
Yeah.
All right. Going back to your younger self and giving advice now, or leaving a note to remind your future self how far you've come.
Future self, baby.
Yeah, I'm going to say future self too.
I so in tune. I love it so much. Caitlin, do you have anything you want to add to the tail end of this?
I am just very thrown by your last question, and maybe that is just a symptom of some unhealed trauma that I need to go back in and resolve, because immediately it was like a knee-jerk reaction to go completely the other direction. We absolutely are going to have you two come back on. This was wonderful, and I just have a whole black hole worth of questions that have opened up in response to your very instinct answers to one another. But I respect what you guys are doing. I respect the conversation that you guys are having consistently on the platform that you have given yourself. And Matt and I have talked about in several episodes how we are the generation who is breaking those patterns of generational trauma. So even on this front, the topic that you guys are talking about, as often as you are, thank you so much for the hard work and the heart work that you all have done that results in some really interesting, creative conversations about some taboo topics.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. So fun to be with you.
Yeah, you guys are fantastic.
You touched on it earlier, and I almost said we'll put a pin in that sentence because you've said it before, and I loved it. I even made a note to bring it up. But I know coming on a podcast, it's always like, is this host going to be good? Is the conversation going to be good? So compared to where you were before, what's true for you right now?
Before we got on this episode?
Yeah.
Oh, the before and after the episode
Yeah,
interview.
before and after.
Mhm. Well, I have been doing episode interviews all day today, so I feel like I'm in a little bit of a roll. This is the final one. I'm just rolling on through.
Yay.
So I came on pretty high. I'm feeling even higher.
Good.
I would say that I'm more centered in my body. Like I feel this connection between, especially my power center and my heart feels like this circuit that is flowing. Like I feel wide open as a result of being in kind of this rich kind of conversation communion with the four of you, with the three of you, including myself. And like it's this kind of thing that makes me feel brighter. Like I have to go pick up my dog from the groomers. I just got some meals started. I can't wait to like pour more love into. Like I'm walking away from this experience with you all feeling brighter, happier, more uplifted, more inspired, more humble, more tender. Like all these feels are kind of like coming right up to the brimming into my heart. And now I want to just like overflow it. Like I'm going to tip the groomer so good right now.
You're welcome,
so
groomer.
Nice to them when you pick up Chewy.
I want to bless their day today, you know?
Yeah.
And that's part of like the feeling of love and connection and being in community like this. Yeah, that inspires me.
Well, if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you or to find out more about what you do or to listen to you, where should they go?
They should go to sexreimagined.com. That's where they can find all of our coursework, all of our info, lots of amazing freebies, really cool, fun freebies.
Yeah.
And then, of course, listen to our podcast, the Sex Reimagined podcast. It's on all the podcast
all those streaming
places.
apps. But especially come visit us on YouTube. We're really wanting to build our presence on YouTube. Come watch us there. Our podcast is both audio and video. And check us out. And then separately, you can find Willow at drwillowbrown.com. And you can also find me at moreloveworks.com.
And their Instagram, which will be tagged in all of our promo for this episode that you can go back and click on.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for being here. Like I said, this is a high level interview for me. So I'm super pumped that you enjoyed it. And I asked you questions. Anytime I can get you to say, man, that's a really good question, and pause, that means I did my job perfectly.
Totally. In fact, would you like to be a question writer for our show?
Yeah. Could we steal some of your questions?
I love doing research and asking questions. So yeah, that would be amazing.
Cool.
We're both writers, so it's a thing we do.
Cool.
Nice.
Thank you both for being here. Thank you for gracing our listeners' ears with your beautiful voices and perfect messages.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.